Hello, welcome to Reloved Workshop. I'm your host Sam. It's the tail end of a nice late summer's day. We got lucky, it's supposed to be raining today, but we got nice weather. So here we are in the shed today, and what we're going to be doing is working on this lovely Squier Telecaster Affinity version. So it's one of the bottom end models. It's lower end Squier, but it's really interesting. It's got everything you'd expect to have on a Telecaster. Nice flat uncontoured body, 2 pickups, individual 6 individual bridge saddles. That's obviously not like an original Telecaster, it's more like the more recent budget ones. 3-position switch and a tone and a volume control. And what you can see on here is the dreaded and most hated cheap tuners that you get with these low-end Squiers. Now we have handy a set of, it's now becoming very familiar if you watch these videos, set of Wilkinson Easy Lock tuners, which experience has shown go perfectly well with these kinds of guitars, and really improve the tuning stability. This, however, having said that, this guitar came from a guy called Bob on eBay, and it was clear from Bob's communication that he really liked this guitar. And that it was a guitar that he had obviously had for some time and really enjoyed. And you could see that as soon as we took it out and plugged it in, it was reasonably well set up, intonation pretty good, and played nicely, and it had that feel of a well cared for guitar. And the thing about the Telecaster is that something about it, I can see why it has so many fans, because there's something really simple and straightforward about Telecaster, an unpretentious guitar, and very easy to play. And I have no idea why that feels that way compared to a Stratocaster or any of the other types of shapes that we have. So immediately we took it out and played it, we liked it, and there's a great risk of it becoming one of our guitars instead of one that's sold through the Reloved workshop. But we've had it sitting about for quite some time, and the reason, well, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but the reason it's been sitting about this long is mainly because we decided that we wanted to put the replacement tuners on, and I'm fairly confident that these cheap style, very thin metal tuners, and they come apart, this little casing, this pressed metal casing, falls off, and you can get to the gears underneath, the simple gear underneath. But what I do know about these is that the peg hole or the post hole for these is smaller than is required for these sealed tuners. So we needed to be able to drill those holes out, and I wanted to wait on this guitar until we had this device over here, the TimberTech drill press. Not a high technology piece of kit, and it's only 65 quid's worth of drill press, but better than nothing. And it, judging by a quick test I've already made, it's probably good enough to safely drill out these holes. I think you can get a reamer, some sort of device. I haven't used one before, so I don't know, but legend has it there's a thing called a reamer which you can use to enlarge a hole that you've already got. I haven't used one, so that's something else we could look into. But for 65 quid, this drill press is handy not only for drilling out these tuner holes, but also when you're making electronics cavities in guitars. A drill press can help you really quickly and accurately take out all the excess wood and leave you either free to route the cavity easily, or if you're like me and you don't have a router, gives you a real head start on the finishing work which you do with the chisel. Okay, so everything about this guitar is nice. There's a couple of blemishes on the paintwork. I've done a couple of repairs which are actually not that good. They're just covered up the wood that was showing through, but I'm still learning how to do these things, and my clear lacquer layers seem to build up quite a few air bubbles because I'm using a little touch-up brush, and over time it seems to get a lot of little white bubbles trapped in it, which kind of spoils it. So I'm probably more tempted at the moment, where there's a little bit of wood, a little bit of undercoat poking through. It's probably cosmetically better just to touch those up with a bit of black cellulose paint that I have got here. I probably could use some thinners as well, which would help me. But so I'll probably just touch up those bits, having done 1 or 2 repairs anyway. But everything else about it looks in pretty good condition, and what I really want to do is take it apart, give all the components a good clean. There's what's probably the tone knob here is spinning freely, so there's probably needs taking care of. Having a look at the pot under there, see if it's broken or if there's something loose. But we'll change out these tuners. This probably then will be the best set of these cheap tuners that we've got. Well, then we've got a fair few sets of these by now, but I'll sort out and keep one good set in case we have a project that we need to put it on. So we'll change out the tuners, we'll obviously restring it, we'll check the neck relief, we'll do a fret job on it so that the frets are refreshed and reconditioned. Just check the electrics, and then we'll put it all back together again with the nice new tuners on to make the tuning much more stable. But yeah, nice unit actually. Not at all bad as I expected. There's a lot of negative press for the Affinity range, both of Telecasters and of the Strats. But having said that, the ones that we've had a look at in the last couple of days, this one here that Thomas got locally, actually we've cleaned this up, set a fabulous action on here, and put some new tuners on it, and that thing is great, absolutely wonderful. And I've got another one going over here in Sunburst, which is really flawless and no scratches at all, and we've got the neck here which we're going to give a clean up and a recondition to, and again we may not replace the tuners on here because these seem reasonably good. But both of those are Affinity Strats, and they're actually not a bad foundation to do a good setup on. So even though they get bad press, we're sticking with them. Got a couple of them, sticking with them, and actually quite pleased with the outcome so far. So let's get stuck into this Telecaster without any further ado. We'll get some light on in here. And as always, the first thing we'll do is we'll just take off these old strings. They're not that old even, so it's kind of a bit of a shame. Bob's strings, he's obviously put them on new-ish before selling the guitar to me. And we could keep them. I've got a couple of sets of strings here put to one side, which again probably never get used on a guitar. But on the other hand, they may get used on something, and sometimes you need to put strings on to test certain things. For example, there are some guitars where you can't get access to the truss rod when the guitar is put back together again and restrung. And a guitar like that, you need to be able to string it, check the relief, then go back, take the neck off, adjust the truss rod a little bit, put it back on, restring it. And in that situation, if you put on a new set of strings, you'll weaken them each time, and so it's probably a really good idea to use an old set, to have them standing by, that you could put them on and off quickly a few times, because you're not really that bothered about how long they'll last afterwards. Whereas when you come to putting on a set of strings, certainly for us, if we're going to sell the guitar on, we're going to want that set of strings not to have any weaknesses or crimps that are liable to break. So I'm going to keep this set because they're really reasonably good condition. And what I'm also going to do is just see if they come out fairly easily from here without getting tangled up. because that can be a real problem, is they suddenly all get tangled up at this end. I probably should have made an effort to separate these out, because we've already got a bird's nest here, and that can sometimes that can result in such frustration that you get the clippers to them and chop off these curly bits. But of course, if you chop off the curly bits, you're never going to get them to reach the tuning pegs of any guitar ever again, which means you've rendered them practically unusable as far as keeping them for neck straightening purposes. So a little bit of patience will go a long way in keeping these for reuse. And patience is not something I'm known for. My partner will testify to, won't you, Claire? Not in earshot. You can probably hear outside the local church bells ringing. It's a Monday evening. I'm not usually here on a Monday evening. I had an extra day off this weekend. My youngest son came down for the first time in a while. So it's been really nice not to be my usual place. This time on a Monday night is on a train to London. So I've got myself an extra day to take care of this Telecaster. Okay. So there we are, we've got all our strings off nicely, and we can just collect them up, keep them. I've got another set in the house actually for similar purposes, but we can put these safe for later use. What I'll do is I'll just put one loop in them and push the heads back through once, little tug, so it's done up, and then I will put them somewhere. Right now, nowhere obvious to put them, but I'll hang them up here for the time being. That's going to be a recipe for trouble, but I'll come back to them later on. Okay, so true to our tradition of taking everything off to get everything clean, I'm going to go around this with the take all the plastics off. Now I'm just going to have a look underneath here. What we find is under the Telecaster there's only one hole there. There's not a large cavity. But in doing this I can get rid of some of this, a little bit of plastic that was left under this screw from when it was new. It looks a bit shabby, so some of the protective plastic got left on, and this often, actually on the Stratocasters, you'll often find this protective plastic is caught underneath the volume and tone knobs, and because sometimes they're very hard to get off, the new owner will just rip off the plastic and it will bunch underneath the tone and volume pots and stay there. And they'll rip it off the best they can, but just leave some bunched underneath, which can look really messy. So just a quite tight fit. Okay, so this one comes off in one piece, and again some more plastic trapped under there. Somewhere I'll go and get the polish. When what? No. Ding dong ding dong dong. So we'll get some standard polish under here to get some of the main grime off these pieces of plastic. Mr. Sheen polish tends to get it off fairly well, but if you aren't able to do that, you might have to resort to tougher stuff, and a variety of things might work. Depends what you've got clogging up the plastic. If it's sort of sticky stuff from stickers or badges or something like that, you might want to end up using some sort of solvent. And I use surgical spirits very often for that. And this is quite grimy, so it's testament to this being quite an old guitar, and as it feels like it's been played a lot over the years, possibly from a smoky environment as well. That was the impression I got when we first got it. But hey, I'm not mocking anyone for that. Hello Morris. I was a smoker myself for many years. So that takes just a bit of the gunge off there. It's not perfect. Sometimes I'll get these things in the sink and give them a good wash down. Depends what sort of time we have on our hands. But even now it's nicer, a little bit cleaner than it was. And then I tend to also just go around here now and get the main sort of excess dust off. There's no harm in cleaning it up a little bit as we go along. Just makes it that little bit easier to work on. So I'll show you under the covers here any second now. Just again take some of this major gunge off it from the surface. Yes, it does have that feel of a well played, well worn guitar. There's not a lot of wear on the frets. There's possibly they've been refinished at some point anyway, resurfaced or reprofiled. Certainly, if this is as old as it feels in terms of the condition of the body, you'd expect a bit more wear than currently shows. But okay, so some of the dust off there. So what you're looking at is the little bridge pickup, sorry, neck pickup there, and again give that little clean up some of the slime that's got trapped down the side. It's got a little dent on it on the case here, but doesn't affect its performance, just slightly affects how it looks. And it's the kind of thing that you could get a replacement cover for that fairly easily. But the rest of it, as you can see, you've got the bridge piece there that bolted straight into there. No tremolo or anything on it, so it's very simple. It does go through to the back of the guitar where the strings attach into their little ferrules, and then the jack plug hole on the edge of the guitar. So I'm just going to clean a bit more around the side of this pickup. But actually, what I'm going to do first then is I'm going to take the neck off. And again, as with all of our guitars, the piece of advice I give you in taking the neck off is always assume that there's a shim underneath there, and the shim is a very thin piece of material that can be put underneath or put between the neck and the wood of the body to change the angle of the neck. And somebody, the manufacturer or a luthier, somebody reconditioning the guitar, may decide that the neck needs a different angle, for example, higher or lower, and a shim placed underneath this neck will allow them to change the angle. Okay, so we'll always, when you take off the neck, assume there is a shim under there, and if there is, be ready for it and mark its position so you know where it is. Because if you change the position or you lose the shim and put another one in, you will radically change the geometry of the neck, which is okay. You can probably find the right geometry again yourself, but if it was playing okay before, why reinvent the wheel? So we'll just take out these big screws, and again, the thing to remember when using the electric screwdriver is you always want to begin your unscrewing with enough downward pressure to make sure that your screwdriver head doesn't skip, because it's the skipping in the slot, that, or in the star-shaped slot, that does the damage to the heads of the screw. So strangely enough, even when you're unscrewing and you want the screw to come out, downward pressure with a screwdriver is the way to get it to come out safely. It seems counterintuitive, but it does work. Okay, so there's our neck plate off, bearing the legend "Made in China," and it's a serial number YN, which I presume it means it's a Chinese serial number. And then we're just going to gently pull off the body and inspect the two faces of it. So no shim there, wood to wood. Just give it a little brush up, wipe up. So there we go. There's our neck, nicely off. We'll come back to that in a second. And in our neck heel, there's a bit of wood shavings and a few random holes where it's probably been. All these little holes, by the way, have been made where the neck has been bolted. The body has been bolted to a piece of wood, not the neck, but a piece of wood used for holding up like a lollipop stick when they're doing the lacquer spraying. So you can move the thing around without getting touching the paint job. Okay, so while I'm at it, I'm going to also take off most of everything else on this guitar, just so that we can have a look underneath everything. I'll change the head for my screwdriver here, because that's not a good one for these. It's a better one. Just a peek underneath, and we'll also take off all these bridge saddles so that we can clean each one of them. It's a small detail, but it makes the guitar look a lot nicer when you've done it. Okay, there's one in the middle there, I forgot that one. Okay, so again, this is just a quick check. That's interesting. What's that? Oh, I see. That's the earth. Never seen that before. This is all new on me. So let's turn this around so you can see. So we have a very dusty interior. Again, we'll do a bit of Mr. Sheen to clean it up. I'll unhook our camera so it can come down a bit. So down here we've got grubby edge of the bodywork where the plate's been, and we have the pickup, single coil pickup there. Just clean it up a bit around the edge. Single coil pickup attached to the bridge plate, and underneath the bridge plate we've got this little wire here that pokes out and then folds over and sits like that, and that then touches the base plate and forms an earth contact, which is interesting, because I would have imagined that would be soldered in, but it's clearly not. It's just loose and it touches the metal plate. Kind of strange, interesting and strange. You learn something every time. Not taken one of these apart before. So I don't need to really worry about anything under there. So what I just want to make sure when I put it back down is that the little wire is in fact touching the base plate. And I'm just going to line the screws up on here and put them back in. There's 5 of them. Again, with all these things, just let them let them fall into position so they naturally go back to the setting they were before. Don't ever start with one screw and just force it back in without making reference to the other ones. Okay, so that they will, as they all go in, they will gently sort of line up and drag the plate back to where they were in the first place. So I'm just going to lightly put them back in. There's no need for this to be tightly screwed down. It's not holding any massive load. The load goes through, the load of the strings goes through the body. Okay. Right, so while I'm here, I will then take off the little bridge saddles. Now they're in a way, the sad thing is that they've all been nicely intonated, but we want to clean them, and I'm prepared to go through the process of intonating them all over again, and I'll remember where they went, so when I take them off I'll put them in the same order position that they were on the guitar. Just makes it easier for me. And I'm taking it easy with this screwdriver because when you're taking off the bridge saddles, there's always a possibility of damaging the paintwork around that end, and also when you're intonating, because you're using a screwdriver right down here on the bridge saddles, and they're actually quite hard, surprisingly hard to get to when you're doing the intonation, and as a result quite easy to slip with your screwdriver, which ends up with you bashing the paintwork. So slower rather than quick on any of these things. And I'm going to give each individual saddle a clean with some rubbing alcohol, get rid of the gunge on it, and then clean underneath as well. And you know, all it does is make the thing look nicer, make it look like it's had some attention. Okay, so I'll put those off to one side in the order they were in, and again straight away just get in there with the polish. Silicone polish is okay, it's not going to do any harm at all to chrome steel, so you know, just getting in there and cleaning up that. There are some marks on this that you won't get out, where the little feet from the bridge saddles has over the years pressed against the chrome. Chrome doesn't seem to be a very durable substance, and it's very pretty, but you can easily damage it. So I've just made it look a lot nicer. If you look up close, you may be able to see the little tiny scratches in the chrome, but again that will look a whole lot nicer when we come to put it back together. Also, while I'm here, I'm just going to take off the plate with the knobs on it, and we know one of them is going to be faulty, so we're going to have to think about what we can do to fix it, and see what we think the problem is here. Okay, so again we can pull that nice bit of fairly straightforward wiring, quite fine, so we'll be very careful around that. We might want to prop it up with something to avoid the risk of it. I'm just going to pull it a fair bit, but just pop it under there on top of something. Again, a bit of polish to get rid of the excess dust and sawdust. As I say, it doesn't change the way the thing plays, but you know, it'll add overall to the, that's good, it's acting like Velcro, it'll add overall to the sort of clean look or feel of the thing. Okay, so you can see the the switch there and the two pots, and there's two capacitors, green capacitors there. And we know that this pot here spins all the way around. It doesn't affect the functioning, but it spins all the way. And what I don't know is if there's anything we can do about that. What I don't think, it's not the knob spinning. It's the, I think there's something internal in the pot itself. So I'm just going to have a see if I can make an adjustment with that. Where's our? Oh no! I seem to have, may have lost. No, I've got our. This is the vital tool that fits the Allen key hole in all these. Well, it usually does, except this one. Shock horror. Or is it? Yeah, it is. It's coming out. Okay, I'm just going to take this off and have a look while I'm at it. That came out so easily. I suspect that we take this off. It does work. The pot. That's great news. Look, the pot. You can hear it. It clicks to stop. So there's nothing wrong with the pot itself. It's the knob screwed on incorrectly. So while I'm here, since I'm already in this process, I'm just going to take this other one off, and I'm going to give them both a quick clean, just for the hell of it, since we're in that sort of game. I also know now that I can put this back together again to make sure that I don't have any further damage. There's nothing I need to do internally to this, so I would be tempted now to just press this gently back into place, making sure everything fits in its little hole. And then we could screw this back down, and it means that we can work on top of it without running into any more problems. So let's just do that while I'm here. This is it's quite a bent plate actually, so this does hold it under tension, which is not a bad thing, but it's quite a lot of downward force. But there you go, back in place, everything working like before. Again, I'll just do a bit of polish on here because there are some marks around it, but again, it looks in good nick. I mean, apart from the fact that the screw had come, the little grub screw had become loose, nothing else wrong with that. I'm pleased to note. So again, we're just making it shinier, improving the overall look of it. And then we take a close look at these knobs, and actually they are quite dirty. So I would be tempted to whisk these, get some water and a little bit of soap, which I'll go and get now, and then we'll just be able to do them right here. I've got my little jam jar, so stick with me, back in a few seconds. I'm also going to put the big light on while we're at it. So let's fire that up. Okay, bit of soapy water for cleaning my knobs, and actually a bit of overkill really, because we're not cleaning that many knobs, but really simple. Just a bit of soapy water, get the finger grease out of it, and just feel that bit newer. And it only takes a short while to do it, so you might as well. Who wouldn't want nice clean knobs? on their Telecaster. Small details like this, you see, make all the difference. That's my theory. So, yeah, fresh and shiny. Not that dissimilar to this one, but I can see the dirt even if you can't. Same applies when we do the neck a bit later on. We tend to take some water and very lightly use some very fine sandpaper on the neck with water, and that will take away some of the finger oils that have been on it. And really, you only need to do that where they've built up quite a lot, because what you tend to do after that is you automatically will get a fairly dry neck. I mean, you'll get a clean neck, so you won't be, you won't have those sort of build-ups, those sticky build-ups that you can get of other people's finger goo. But having done that, you have to accept that you'll end up with a drier neck. It will take some of the natural oils out, and so having done that, you would then want to put some oil back into it. Probably use something like lemon oil, which we've got here. So I'm just going to screw these knobs back into place, and actually just be cautious not to screw them so that they're flat on the ground, because what can happen is if you press them too far down where they sit naturally, you actually end up scraping the little metal thing as you go around. So I just tend to make sure they're all pointing in the right direction before I screw them into place. So I let them drop to the ground and then pull them back up a couple of millimetres, or a millimetre or so, just to give that bit of clearance. And then I'll tighten this right up. I'm not sure if it can go any further, so it may be the problem. It may have stripped. That's not bad. That's bad. It's not bad. It's certainly fixed the problem. It's clunking at both ends of its stop. So there we go. Number one minor problem addressed, taken care of, and we get a bit of cloth and just make sure we keep this nice and relatively dust free as we go through. But we'll obviously do a proper polish right at the end of all of this, so it's not too critical right now. Okay, so that's our body. Kind of as much as we're going to do with it right now. I will do a tiny touch up with black paint here, but I'll probably actually I'll do it and then I'll hang it up while we get on with the neck. So I'll prepare myself a bit of my hanging wire, garden wire, simple way around, and I'll just have that ready so that once we've put the cellulose paint on it, I can just tie this up and put it on hang it off a screw on the beam over there. It's a bit low tech, but it's a good enough way of doing it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just push those through now and have it ready. Right, if I throw it on the floor, it won't. So the last job we did was a Affinity Strat, and that actually took a full 4.5 hours. God only knows whether or not I'll be able to upload that video at work during the remainder of this week, because it's 12 gigabytes. So having these videos is a really nice way of being able to show people what we've done, but it is very memory intensive, as you can imagine. HD video is not cheap when it comes to bandwidth. So I tend to do it from work, where there's usually a civilized sort of bandwidth compared to here, but even this week, 12 gigabytes, I'm going to be struggling to get that up, if you excuse the expression. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to put in another little screw onto the beam up here, because it's always handy to have anchor points. And then I can hang things to dry. So before we move on to our neck, then I'm going to get my black cellulose paint, and I'm just going to very carefully touch up the 2 or 3 spots that need it. And for this I'm going to make sure I've got my reading glasses on. And this would just be a very small amount. It's quite thick. I haven't got any thinners for this, and it coats the stem of the brush. So I have to be careful that doesn't kind of work its way down and then blob all over it. But it's pretty good, and it's great quality paint, and this will cover up any imperfections that have gone through to the undercoat or the primer coat, and also cover up if it's gone down to the wood as well. Okay, so I'm just touching up these spots, and I can give it an hour or so, and then if necessary I can revisit while it's hanging up there and just retouch any bits again. Can be, I mean, it's thick, but it also sometimes can require a second touch. Okay, there's the 2 main bits I can see, and then there's, no, it's not too bad, I'll leave that. Right, so having touched up the main bits that were visible, I'm now going to take this, and there's a bit on the top that's been done before. I'm going to take this now and hang it. Where am I going to hang it? I'm going to hang it here. Okay, and that's literally just out of the way. You can see dangling away up there, out of harm's way. It gives me space to do the neck parts of stuff, which I'll get onto in a second, but before I do that, I'm also going to give the bridge saddles a quick soap and water while I'm at it. Now normally if I was taking longer with this whole process, I would get a container for this, so I can make sure that all the parts for this guitar go into the right place and stay together. But at the moment I'm doing all this in one go, so it's not critical because they're all on the desk or on the workbench here. So a quick toothbrushing, a little bit of soapy water, not much, but just enough to remove any gunge, and I'm putting them back down in the same order that I took them off, just so that they go back in the same place. There's no real reason. You can interchange them, but what you will find is that 2 of the 6 have shorter grub screws than the rest, and the other 4 will have longer grub screws, and they tend to be, people put them in different places, but they tend to be on the E strings, because some people put them on the E and the B. I've seen them on the E and the E. I think it probably makes sense that what makes sense? I think it makes sense that they're on the strings that are inherently going to have the lowest action on the whole guitar, and that tends to be the E and the B. So that would be my common sense answer. Okay. So what we've done so far then is pretty much a basic all over check. I was playing it outside, so I know that the electrics work. I know the tone volume works, and it sounds pretty good. So first part of the whole process is a sort of physical check and then an electronics check, and we've done that by taking it apart, having a look at the electrics, curing the problem with the tone knob, which is good. No further action needed. So all of that part's good, and we've taken off various components and giving them a clean up, so that we'd be ready to put those back together again shortly. We don't have to leave them hanging around off the guitar, because once they're clean, they're clean, and they can go back on. And then we'll move on to the neck. And at this stage in the game, this is sort of the second main part of the whole process of setting up, and so the neck is a really important bit. And you might be surprised to know that it typically takes an hour and a half to dress or level the frets, and then to reprofile them and polish them and get them back to, or to get them into tip-top condition. Okay, so that's my saddles nicely cleaned up. Yeah, the neck work takes about an hour and a half, so we could sort of start the clock here if we wanted. So here we have the square neck, a little bit grubby but not too dirty. I might just give that a quick clean over with a very light bit of sandpaper. But what I'll do is we'll take off the various bits and pieces, because we're going to replace these tuners. And the reason we're going to replace them is just to improve the guitar. It's started out as a very nice guitar, and we're just going to make it that bit better, because it's worth doing it too. No reason why not to make it better. So we'll take the single string tree off, pop it off to one side, and then okay, these are interesting. These are held on. There's no nut on this side. These are just held on by the screws on this side, and there's 2 per tuning head. And I'm just going to use a manual screwdriver at this point in time to remove these. And they are slightly. I stand corrected. No, I was going to say they look like sealed units, but actually, if you pull at them, I think they'll also come apart. So they are pretty much the same bog standard tuners. And then the little casing thing, I've forgotten the correct word, but that stays in there, but we'll pop that out with using a hammer and an Allen key or something, or a screwdriver tip. But I can see already that the hole on these is very small, so the diameter will not be large enough to fit the new tuners, so that if we opt to fit the new tuners and we commit to it, then we've got no choice but to enlarge the hole, and once we've done that, then we've created it so that the only way of going backwards, if anyone wanted to refit the old tuners, would be to put a bush in there, which kind of closes the space down a bit. You could, I suppose, fill it with hardwood and re-drill a new hole. It's entirely possible. I saw some people arguing about that in a forum the other day, and if you get the perfect dowel size, and you've got good wood glue, which, for example, Type Bond is the best you can get for guitar making, that combination of things will make a perfectly strong replacement or filler. And you can, again, if you're using a pillar drill or being very careful, you can certainly drill a smaller hole back into that to do the job you need for fitting the old tuners. But I don't imagine anybody would want to go backwards and fit the old tuners. And as I said earlier, I have got bags after bags of these old tuners there. These are actually some of the best ones I've seen. They're quite firm. I don't know if they've been built with more care than the bog standard ones, but I could go and pull out my bags of spares, showing how most of them, this housing falls off immediately. The 2 parts come apart very easily, and there's nowhere near this kind of stiff, direct feel to it. So these are actually really good quality for the type they are. But what we do have is the Wilkinson Easy Lock replacement tuners, which are a superb innovation, and it's why you will not be sorry for paying an extra 20 quid on the price of this guitar for the pleasure of these. So first of all, by comparison, they are a nice looking tuner. Okay, they have little oval buttons which are scalloped out, and they have a nice feel to them. They're completely enclosed, and they have a little nut on this side, so you tighten them from both sides. You screw them down one side and tighten them under pressure from the other. But what really makes them unique, and what actually makes them worth the money, and what makes them work so well is, and you won't be able to see it on this camera, but each post has 2 holes in it, drilled at 90 degrees angle to each other. And the idea of this is that when you restring your guitar, you bring the string up here, push it through one hole, pull it taut, wind it around 90 degrees, push it back through the other one, pull it tight, bend the string up, tune up 1 or 2 turns maximum. That's all you'll have. You won't have any slack. Cut the string and you're done. And that 90-degree angle locks the string in place, and it stops the string from slipping later on, which means when you're bending strings and playing, you have much more stable tuning. So I think for £20 they are more than worth the money, and I tend to be basically replacing them on pretty much every single instrument that I've come across. So what we know is, let's just pop out one of these. I use a tremolo to do this. We pop out the little ferrule thing that goes with the old tuner, and we just make a direct comparison with the tuner hole. Now the small part of it obviously goes through nicely, but that's no good because the thick part doesn't go through. So we need to find a drill bit that's equivalent to that, and I think, I don't have a micrometer, but I'm going to do this with using these adjustable wrench as a comparison. Right, so I know what that is there, and I'm going to match it to a drill bit which I think will cut me the same diameter. And it's not that, that's too big. I'll do this a bit more carefully in a second. I'm just going for finding the right thing to start with. I think that's probably closer. So, I mean, you can, if you know your drill bits, it's probably, I think it's a 10. We're going from, I don't know what that is. We can measure it probably with this ruler here. So I would guess that is at best that is just about an 8mm hole, and we are going for what is, again, this is just visual, it's not a precise way of doing this, but I would suggest that we are going to go for just about, it's actually about 9, but it's close to 10. You can be slightly over with these tuners, it won't hurt you. So just to have a comparison, we're on 9 there. Let's bring it, and then we'll just check it against this, and that is a little bit, still a little bit too large. It'll be oversized. Again, we may find that we're now suddenly going to hit the limits of the equipment I've got here, because I may not have another drill bit that does this job. But I have a feeling we are pretty much at the limit. However, we could afford to go slightly over because it will still work. Again, we're going to try it, just comparing this with that. Well, that's a match, okay, and I'm not sure how sharp that is, but we're onto the right size. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just go to my thing with the chuck key, hopefully kept in place there, and we will slacken this off, move that off to one side, put in our correct drill. Now we'll tighten it up with the chuck. It's not plugged in currently. Okay, so we've got a nice tight grip. So what we'd be wanting to do is we're going to want to, when it comes to it, we're going to drill these out, and we're going to go from the flat side, and I'm going to hold this because I don't have a vise that would work for this. So I'm going to hold this in place and drill this out. And we're going to do it. We're going to let the machine do it with let it do it gently. So I'm just going to mask off the frets on here for a minute, just so that I don't scratch them. Sorry about the noise. Just mask them off so I don't scratch them while I'm doing this particular job. There's no reason to damage them if we can help it. Okay, so we've got our flat edge here. We're going to have a drill turning. We don't have a lot to grab onto here. So we're going to need to raise our table up. That's going to come down potentially into there, but we can now put a stop on it for how deep we want to go. The truth is we want to go all the way through, so we don't want to go too far. So again, that needs to be down a tiny bit. It'd be nice if we had an automated one, because really we could use a foot mounted one. Okay, so that's going to be what we do, and I'm just going to test it with a dummy neck, just to make sure I'm good for holding it. Okay, so we have a test neck here, similar sort of situation. We get our it's quite quiet. Got is the depth set right to this, so it needs to go down further. So we'll just tweak that up a bit so we can go all the way through. Okay, so difficult without a vise to support it off here. It's a shame really. Trying to think of a way we could do this. A vise of some sort would really help to hold the thing from moving around. We probably could make one, if I'm just thinking out loud and quickly. Let's see if we could. What we need to do. So we're looking for a straight edge. We could literally tack that into place. We could butt that up with some little pieces of timber. Have we got any knocking about? Or we could cut some. Saw down from the shelf. So you see things being made up on the spur of the moment here. I'll just do this, mark this. Yeah, so we're inventing things live as we speak. But yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't create a little jig to hold this in place. So in reality you could probably take a lot more time to do it than this, but there's no reason why this shouldn't work. I'll get another drill out. All adds to the time. So this should lock it a bit more easily in position and give us a bit more stability, which is what we really want. So I'm going to just draw these so that we can have, it's going to be a bit noisy for a minute. So move that off here. Long screws in. So that will butt up quite nicely to there. It would do if I hadn't got a lump of stuff in the way. And then we can have, put this one in there. A couple of holes here. Ready to go. Not very sharp this drill bit, but hey. Put this screw in first. And then this one, let's just check it again. So just crank it open a little bit. So I'll just now do this one in situ. And that's that done. And just tack that last screw in place. We've got a nice restraining jig. Or a vice, we should say. And that will give us more control over our drilling to make sure we get this right. We have such a nice guitar, we don't want to damage anything. Okay, which means we're going to drop this table down quite a bit more. Put our little thing up there. Right, that's that there. Got quite nice positioning. We've got the drop is correct, and now we can go ahead and we can cut these new slots. Okay, let's get the thing going. side on these. Give me some room to hold on to. Here. Okay, two more. Done. Homemade jig, live to fight another day. Okay, well, I didn't quite get the depth on those, but I can go through with my file. So much better than doing that by hand. That drill could have a sharper bit and much higher speed as well, actually, to be on the safe side. But I'm happy to get these holes done successfully. Hello.
I've been looking at designs for your mum's bracelet.
Yeah.
Because I suddenly realised that I haven't even vegan. I can't find a stone, which is quite annoying. I've got some silver.
Typically, this is just undersized.
What are you doing?
I've just drilled out these tuner holes, put the Wilkinson tuners in, and they're just a tiny bit snug.
Oh,
So the hole needs to be.
this will be the other way around.
Yeah. We'll get there with a bit of pushing and poking. So yeah, a little bit of working with the file, and they go nicely into place, and then we can push them down. That'll do.
The little fishes.
Tight fit, and then the bit to go on the top comes down on top of it, nice and tidy. Okay, so I'll just widen those out a little bit. I'll cut the video now, but we'll get all of those in place and then we'll fill the holes. Hello, back again. Just what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these holes before I put the tuners in, because it's the right thing to do. Because we can then cut the tops of them off level. So nice thing about this is all we need is a blade and some cocktail sticks and some glue. And we're going to just blob a bit of the glue on here. Get the top off. Don't need much, just enough to dip these things in. I'll put that off to one side. Break them in half, and I'm just going to, in fact I might use the clippers, I'm just going to clip the very sharpest bit off the end of each one, roll it in a bit of glue and tap it into the hole, and then leave it there. That's all we're doing, and it's just a way of filling the old holes that we don't need, and it's a little bit more tidy looking, because what we can do is we can then cut these back to level once it's dry, and we'll have filled holes that look like they've always been there. Well, not necessarily, they won't be exactly the same, but it'll be a lot tidier. Just little details, I think that's quite nice to pay attention to. Which means we'll probably need to leave these dry for a bit, which means it's probably best to put a stop on the filming for a little while. Because we need to get free, unhindered access to the other side in order to do our fret levelling, which I have to do. On the subject of fret levelling, anybody who's heard me talk about this before, because I do a video for each guitar, is probably fed up to the eyeballs of hearing me talk about it. But on the subject of fret levelling, it's fair to say that just about every guitar that comes out of a factory and ends up in a shop and then ends up in your hands, probably almost every guitar, the majority, the vast majority, have never had the frets levelled. And if you think that they will be properly levelled in the factory, then I think you'll be sadly mistaken, because the way the frets are put into position is that a little saw cuts the slots on the guitar, and that can be done very, very precisely, because if you think about it, you've got the neck in position and you've got a saw, mechanical saw, and can do that job very precisely. So that you have saw drilling, cutting very, very precise little slot in the neck, in the fingerboard, to take the frets. Then you have the frets themselves, which are very precise little pieces of steel, or whatever material they are, and they're very precise too. And then comes the uncontrollable bit, is that when you put the two together, you can't be exactly sure how they all end up. So when you have the two together, you have a machine or a tool that presses the little piece of fret into the weighting slot with some glue, and you hopefully, if you've got the right amount of bend in your fret that matches the radius of the neck, and the slot is cut right and the glue is the right kind of glue, and you squeeze with the right pressure, all things being equal, you should have a fairly level series of frets. They should sit in there nicely and hold. But you can see straight away that that may not be exact, because you may have different pressure, the tool may grip slightly differently, you may have an impurity or imperfection in the wood that stops the fret sitting down properly, you may have a build-up of some dust that stops it, any number of things. But by the time you've squeezed all those things down, all the frets down, and then the glue dries, you've got a surface or a series of frets which will differ. The heights of the frets will possibly differ. They won't be mathematically or perfectly level. Then you've got a problem. If you've got frets that aren't level, what happens is there is a limit then to how low you can set your action, right? Because if a fret here is higher than a fret there, then what happens is the closer you get to fretting notes, this fret will get in the way, because the gap, the distance, the gap between the string and that fret at this stage when you're playing notes would be minimal. But if that fret's too high, it'll be non-existent. So suddenly you'll be playing up here and you find that that note sounds, and a couple of notes before it will still only play that note. And that's because you're hitting a high part of a fret. To overcome that, all guitars in the shops and all guitars out of the factory will solve it by raising the action at this end so that the strings lift above that imperfection. And what you'll end up with in every guitar you've ever seen or bought second hand is an action that's probably set high, and this one, oops, put that right way up. This one here, this neck here from the yesterday's Sunburst Affinity Strat, that came to me with an action of, well, I picked it up and it had an action of 3mm high at the 20th fret. And that's an enormously high action. But we haven't done it yet, but I can guarantee you that when I go and check for the levelness of those frets, I guarantee you that they will be uneven, and that the height of that action will have been to overcome the problems inherent in uneven frets. Now, it's going to take us an hour and a half to sort that out. on every guitar we've got, okay, because we won't know which frets are uneven. You can guarantee many of them will be, but we won't know until we've straightened the neck, masked it all off and got ready, and then you've done a test. We'll do some checking. Once we've identified which frets are actually high, then we have to mechanically lower them. Okay, some people suggest hammering them in, tapping them in. I don't agree with that. Doesn't seem, there's no logic, there's nothing about that that sounds like a good idea. If you've got a series of frets that are glued into place, and then somebody comes along and goes really hard, all I can imagine that's going to achieve is it's going to bounce the fret into the hole and back out, and it's going to break the seal of any glue. So to me that's going to make that less stable and probably more inaccurate. Also, if I go around bashing that fret because it's high, I have absolutely no control over how far that went further in or didn't. So I'm not really fixing the problem, I'm just probably creating further problems for myself. So in my opinion, there's only one way to level these frets, and that is to do it physically and by coming down and taking off the excess height. And to do that we have to make sure we have a level neck, a flattened neck, which means adjusting the truss rod, and we have to then check each fret individually using a fret rocker, mark up all the frets that are high, and then we either take them all down to a uniform level, or we address just the individual ones that are high and try to get them to balance up the ones around them. A couple of approaches there, but once we've done that, then we'll have a series of frets with a certain amount of metal taken off the top. There will be flat spots where we've done that. There's going to be scratches, and on top of that then we have to redress or reprofile the shape of the fret, because we'll have made it flat instead of the nice round hump that the fret should be, and it's going to require us shaping down the sides, not with this file, but we'll be shaping down the sides of the frets on either side to restore that nice curve without taking any further height off it. So that's going to be quite a sensitive and skilled task. Then once we've done that, we'll be left with frets that are all the right level, that are now all back to the nice round profile they should have, but they will now still have scratches on them, which will make playing impossible. So we then have to polish them all back to an absolutely mirror smooth, or a shiny smooth finish. So it's a long old process, and only when you've done that will you have a fretboard with levelled frets which are now capable of allowing you to set the action lower to whatever playing action you really want, not the one that you're forced to have, because if you go any less than 3mm, for example, you get unbearable buzz or choking. So what we do in this job is this 1.5 hour gives us back the freedom to set a really good playing action, and what you see once you've done it, and if you buy this guitar, what you'll notice is that playing action, and again cite this one as a really good example, the playing action on this bog standard Affinity Strat is unbelievably low. It's about 1mm. In fact, I'm going to raise it up slightly to about 1.25mm. But that thing there is, you can play a chord without even noticing you're touching it. Now, no beginner would think you could get that out of a beginner's guitar, but you can. But you have to do this work to it. And the fact that it isn't done in the shop, it isn't done in the factory, and it's probably not done by the guy or girl who owned this before you, is because it takes 1.5 hours and some skill to do it. It's not rocket science, but it takes patience and skill and experience. So, that introduction having been done, we'll probably come back to this now because it's getting a little bit later. Going to let these dry, and once they're dry we're going to crop those and level them so they're smooth. I guess while that's still doing, I could probably just continue to remount the hole slightly so that we fit the tuners without a struggle. If you're going to drill out the hole, don't do it without a vice or a jig, the way I did it. It's not all too easy to split the wood and end up with a ragged hole. And an unusable split neck if you're not. So just as a test, you can just try dropping those in. They now fit perfectly. Tiny bit tight on that one, but other than that they're a good fit. Now I'm not going to squeeze those in just yet because I don't want to do it until I've taken off these filler pegs. And I'll let those dry for a little bit longer, and we'll go and have a cup of tea and we'll come back to this next stage. Actually, while I'm there, what I can be doing is masking off the neck. Now you might think I've already done it there, but actually I have to do it, in order to level the frets we have to do it in a very specific way, so this won't work. That was just to take care of it while we were doing the other job. First thing we've got to do then when we level the frets is we have to start with a level neck, and your neck has a truss rod inside it, a metal rod, okay, which allows you to flex the neck, and you can either make it convex like that, or you can make it concave like that. And when you're playing, it tends to normally have a bit of relief or concavity in it. But for the purposes of leveling the frets, we're going to need to make sure that it's level. And I'm just looking down this now, and that actually is almost level to start with. It has a slight unevenness to it, so that one side it's almost level, almost flat all the way along, as good as near as damn it, and the other side has a tiny bit of concavity in it. So actually, to me, I would say that's a little bit of a twist, so that this side is slightly concave and this side is just about flat. Since we've taken it off, we haven't adjusted the truss rod. We're going to do the fret leveling, and we're going to put it back on, and then it will bend a little bit more under the pressure of the strings, probably to as much as we need, given it's an old guitar and it's settled into its ways. I am going to take that as probably, I was going to say, I was going to take that as just about as much as flat as we want, but I'm slightly worried about this right hand side. I'm going to take that as flat, okay, for the purposes of this. Now, what I'll need to do is, before having set the truss rod, let's imagine we set it, we're now going to mask off the neck while we're at it. Let's get all these things done before we take a break. So to mask off the neck, I'm going to need a fair bit of masking tape. I'm going to need to have a cutting surface like this, piece of wood, and I'm going to need a blade for cutting it into the lengths that I need. So I'm cutting it square at the ends because I'm obsessive compulsive or something. Into a rubbish bin. Okay, so I'm going to cut some lengths on this, about 3-4 inches long, and then I'm going to start with by just putting these straight on to the frets, hopefully in one bit at a time, straight onto the frets, and the idea then is to get the masking tape right up against the fret, press it down, and then come around to the back, and I'm going to join this up so I can rip it off afterwards. So join it up like a little collar, and then so the big widely spaced frets, the first few frets will take 2 pieces per fret, but you can see that as you go down the neck, the frets get closer together, so we're not going to be able to get a big chunky piece of masking tape under there. We're going to have to start cutting the masking tape thinner, which is why we've got the knife. Okay, so first few frets we get 2 pieces on, then we'll be down to 1, and then we'll have to start cutting them to half widths. And actually, before we finish, when we get down this end, we'll be on 3rd widths for a bit. So I'm struggling a bit with this because I've got the toothpick sticking out the other end, which I don't normally have, which is making it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. So it's critical to take the time to do this masking properly. If you don't do it properly, you'll damage the fingerboard, and that, for the sake of having nice, smooth, lower, even frets, to have ruined your fingerboard on a nice guitar like this will probably not make it very saleable if you're selling them, but also it won't make the owner very happy. So take the time to mask this off thoroughly and make sure you've got ordinary simple masking tape. You don't need any fancy expensive stuff, just the bog standard stuff will withstand what we're going to do. And then you're just going to plod your way through it all the way to the end of the neck. These will set soon. I'll be able to cut them off and give myself room to play. And if you can hear shouting, that's Thomas, my stepson, playing over the internet with his friends. It's a very weird thing to see hear people in their rooms shouting at imaginary, well, virtual friends. You can tell that an old duffer like me is not a great fan of that kind of socialising. I think it's a shame, but then again, I'm out here in the shed talking to you, so how much better am I? Right, so we've now reached the one where one piece is just as wide as that gap there, and one piece is going to be too wide for that gap, so now I need to go to split the length of masking tape down the middle, and now I've got 2 pieces, which now I have to, will just slightly cross over on that fret, because they're now just together wide enough. And so we go all the way to the end. And if you can hear the sheep out in the fields, unusual sound for August. I'm going to put an extra bit over the top of that because that seam there, that join, is just a bit too close. What I'm going to do while we're here is I'm going to just chop off, cut short all these little tags. I'm going to cut them even shorter later on, but for now they'll allow me to get on with this neck. And they're firing everywhere, health hazard. But yeah, I can lower them even further a bit later on, but for now they'll allow me to get on with other things. Okay, so now we can finally put this down a bit more freely. Okay, so we're on to now tape that's cut down the middle. I'm just dying to get those new tuners on. They're so nice. Oops. Need some new cutting edges too. These are getting a bit blunt. Okay, so we're going to go in halves on 2 of these. In halves down the middle on 2. Cut long ways, and then we're going to go into thirds on the last one for the finer ones. Oh, I have gone way off the mark now. It's hopeless. Useless. I think my blades are run out. Let's see what I can do with where I've got to. So, as I said, I'll double this one up just to protect that spot, and then I'll carry on with the half pieces. So if you're the kind of person who has patience, this is the job for you. If you're the kind of person who really knows they have a difficulty concentrating and sticking with something, you may have to reconsider doing this kind of job, because if you rush this, you can do a lot of damage to your fretboard or your frets, and that's a shame, because you're doing this. If you're doing it to improve the overall playability of your guitar, and it would be a shame to trash it. So, whizzing along down the guitar neck, frets are getting closer together. I could use a cup of tea. No fast way of doing this. Don't leave any gaps. Critical. Up to the 12th fret and onwards. Okay, still on my last few bits. Cut some more. We're almost going to be down to the bits that need to be cut 3 ways, which I did very badly on that last one, so let's try and do this differently. So, half ways and then 3 ways. Not very sharp, that's my problem. I've run out of sharpness on this, it's puckering the paper. Right. See if we can get through to the end of this bit. So it's worth bearing in mind that at this stage in the game we are lining up to do something destructive. It's not just cleaning or giving it a little soapy scrub. We are getting ready to, as we did with the drilling out the holes there, we're getting ready to do something to the neck, which, if it went wrong, would knacker the guitar, or certainly send us off looking for replacement bits, which wouldn't be great if you're keen to get the thing finished and then you have to wait a couple of weeks to get some replacements to fix what you've done wrong, like a whole new neck. So as you're doing this, be very conscious that this is destructive work. You're taking metal, you're getting ready to take metal off the frets, and of course the point about that is that you can't put the metal back on. So you should be, as you're approaching this stage, if you're doing this, you should very definitely be in a tiny bit at a time mentality, going slow, very small amounts at a time, checking, take a bit more off if you need to, check again. You don't want to be doing anything heavy-handed at this stage, because the old rule applies, is that you can always take some more off but you can't put it back on when it comes to this work. Nearly there. These frets here, I'd noticed playing this guitar before, these frets have been quite badly damaged at some point. Bob's, whether he's dropped the neck or something's banged against it, you can hear it, very scratchy and pitted, but sharp sort of gouges, so it's been hit by something. And we're going to take care of that with this fret levelling job, which is the nice thing, so that little imperfection is going to get disappeared, along with any other wear that you might expect to find on the frets down here from an old guitar, or a relatively old guitar. Okay, so I'm just going to double tap the end of that one so that we're all covered up nicely. Right, so not a speedy operation, as you can see. We are now in a position where we've got the holes drilled out to the right size for the tuners, we've got the frets all masked off perfectly, and even the ones up here which you can probably hear now. Yeah, you should be able to hear that. Okay, so while we're at it then, let's just keep firing on. Delay gratification for a minute. We're going to need a waterproof marker and the fret rocker tool. And the fret rocker tool is a cunning little piece of kit, and it's designed to check whether your frets are level or not. And it does this by, you put one of the edges over 3 frets, and you can see that the edges get smaller as your frets get closer together, so you have to switch. But you start off and you rock over the middle fret, and if you can rock, you'll hear a clicking noise, and it means the middle fret is higher than the other two to allow there to be pivoting action. So you can hear straight away on my 2nd fret it's high at both edges but not in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to literally mark where it's high, but it's permanent, that's good. I'm going to mark on the fret itself, and I'm also going to mark on the paper next to it so I don't lose track of it. And then I move to the next fret. That one's quite high too, but only in one place. So from here down to the end. So straight away you can see I'm building up a map of frets that are high and where they're high. So a little chunk there. It's not only is it a bit high there, it's also got a dimple in it, a dent in it. So anything we do here will hopefully take that imperfection out of the fret itself. Gosh, high. So that's from here through to here. So this is common. It's nothing unusual about this. There's nothing. Pretty much every guitar we've come across has at least this much, this many high frets. And so it's a very simple test, but it's very tangible because you can see that's some of the problems you've got on this guitar, which played pretty well beforehand. What we're going to do now is we're going to improve it. and by levelling the frets we're going to predominantly give you back the freedom to set the action the way you like it, as opposed to being dictated to by uneven frets, which you have to set the action high to miss out those the problems caused by the uneven frets. So both ends of this one. Now when you have the ends appear to be high, it could be it will make you think, not unreasonably, that the fret either hasn't been bedded in properly at the end, at the edges, or that the fret itself has been perhaps incorrectly curved prior to putting into the guitar. Hey, two frets that haven't been uneven. More. This is unheard of. Good things had to come to an end. So we've got a run of 3 whole frets that didn't have any high spots. That's the exception rather than the rule. You can see that's the majority of frets. So I'm just looking at this thing, the amount of high frets on here. I am tempted, and the fact that we've got some frets with some significant gouges on them is leading me to the conclusion that I'm going to use a fret leveling file on this, which is going to take a bit off all of the frets, including the first and last one. In doing so, it'll also tidy up some of these nicks and scratches that we've clearly got. So in a way, doing this checking now is a little bit academic, since we're going to, I think I've now decided to do the whole thing, do all the frets. And what that means is it'll just take more off the high ones, but it will take a tiny bit off everything to get it all down to a consistent, uniform level. Remarkably, these last few, nearly all right, not quite, but they have got quite a few little cuts and scratches for sure. Okay, so as I say, in a way, if we decided that we were already going to use the fret leveling file, we in a sense technically wouldn't have to do that. But I like to do it because it gives me a map of, I suppose it builds up a picture from my experience over time of just how uneven a commercially produced guitar frets will be. And that's a simple physics test, or mechanical test, to show you the high spots. Now I'm going to now go straight at it with a fret leveling file, which Thomas has drawn scary eyes on because he thinks it's an evil file. But I'm just going to go straight at these now, and the aim of leveling all of these in one go. So I start on the edges all the way down to the end, and I can see it starting to take material off already. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the edges. Takes off a lot of material, but the first thing I can then do is go straight back with my checker, and with a bit of luck, any of the spots that we had high spots on before will now no longer have them, because we've leveled everything. Now if we had created any new problems by doing this, this would also show up, but the fact that it doesn't now tells me we've solved those problems in one go. It's worth just doing everything again, just to be sure. You don't want to go and start, get ready to tidy up and dress or reprofile the frets if we've created more problems and that we'll need to do any more levelling. But I have to say, this is a very direct, voracious method, and it has done everything in one go. Tiny bit there, funnily enough. Okay, now those are all levelled now. Job done, except we now have to profile them and we have to polish them. And I'll stop at this point, but I'm just going to prepare it. So to reprofile the frets, we're going to reprofile every single one, since the fret file has taken a bit off every single one. So the first thing we do is we go over each fret again with permanent marker. Big, soft, wet marker you need to cover it quickly and effectively. So every single fret covered in black marker, because that black marker is going to be the key to telling us how we're doing in the next stage. And how it will work is this. We're going to take a file, a three-sided triangular file with one rounded edge, and that edge will work on the masking tape. And we're going to work the edges of every single fret, and we're going to start upright, going to start working on the edges, and then we're going to bend it over so that we come towards the top. What we're going to do is we're going to stop before we get to the very top, and we're going to do that on both sides. And with luck, what we'll end up with is a very thin, maybe a millimetre wide strip of black marker on the top of the fret. And if we do that for all of these, what we'll know is that we've profiled the edges of the frets and left the tops untouched. That means they will be the same height as they were when we levelled them, and that's the really critical bit. So we've got to leave that little thin black strip at the top of each of these frets, and that's why we use the black marker, because this will tell us that we haven't touched the top of that fret. Okay, so I'm going to do one and then stop the film, and we'll recommence when I've got all of them done, because I need a cup of tea and a break. So I'll start with this first one, and again, like I say, we're going to go with, let's come in closer, we're going to go with the rounded edge on the masking tape, and this is horizontal. Okay, we come up to the edge of the fret, and we can feel it start to bite the fret, and I can see it taking away the black marker on the edge of this fret, and I can just go gently backwards and forwards, and when I'm comfortable that I've got the thing biting okay, I'm now going to tip the file inwards towards the centre of the fret, and I can see that that's now taking off the sort of shoulder of the fret, coming towards the middle, and when I'm comfortable that I've got as far as I can do on that side, I'll stop and go to the other side. And again, I'm going to start with the file upper surface flat, get a sort of bite onto the shoulder of it, and then start tipping over towards the top of the fret. And if I need to, I might just support it a little bit there. And it's not going to be perfect, and it takes some practice, but eventually you will get to see the little black line left untouched at the top of the fret, and you're aiming for as thin a line as you can get without wearing away any of that black on the top of the fret. Now on this one, I'm quite happy with that. Probably be impossible to see, but that is about 1 millimetre width all the way down the middle of the fret, and that's where I'd stop, and then I would do all of these. Okay, so I will stop for now and rejoin when that's done. Okay, last stage, here we go. We've reprofiled all of these frets. They're all now ready to start sanding, and we're also we've also leveled off the little inserts, so we're ready to put the tuners on as soon as we've done the sanding. I think I'm going to do the sanding first and then come back to the tuners. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to get 2 grades of sandpaper going here. I'll find it. Okay, we've got 600 and we've got 320, and I'm going to start with 320. And what I've learned is that using the fret leveling file creates a lot of scratching on the frets, so we're going to need to be quite aggressive to get rid of that scratching to begin with. And we have to be very careful not to take down the height of the frets. So in this part of the process, I'm going to make sure that I give every fret the same treatment, because we're taking off quite a lot of material to make sure that the main scratches from the fret leveling file are taken out. So I'm going to go backwards and forwards and just try to keep it consistent across all the frets. You can see there's still quite a lot of gouging on these frets from before, but it's not as bad as it was. So I'm just going to do a bit of backwards and forwardsing, again trying to keep it consistent across all of them without staying too long on any one. Oh, that's interesting. As we're doing that, just notice the nuts popped out. That's okay, we can glue that back in. Okay, now I'm going to go from that to a lighter grade 600. And again, still doing the same thing, using my fingers, letting the fingers go over the fret and down the other side. And everything we do after this is going to be about bringing the frets up to a polish. So we have to be sure that by the time we move off this fairly, still fairly severe grit, 600, quite aggressive grit, we have to be sure that we've got the main chips and dents out of the fret, because the finer papers are not going to remove those chips. So if the imperfections or if the marks are still there, you're going to feel them come the end when you play the guitar. It becomes quite hard to actually hold paper. I can see a scratch still in this one. My worry about that is if I go back to the more aggressive paper, we're going to lower this relative to the frets all around it more than it should be. And I'm just going to have to call that quits, because I don't want to take it any further out than that. I can still see the little dent it made. But it's going to end up better than it originally was. Okay, so having done that, now we're going to switch to these papers. I'm going to use a pointed block, and I'm going to go across these from 1500 right the way to 12,000, and hopefully by the time we get there we will sort of polish the surface out of it. So from 1500 to 1800. $2,400. $3,002. Morris, the cat, 3006. Hello Morris. Oh. Minnie the kitten as well. So it's around about this time, as we hit the 4,000 mark, it starts to polish and shine rather than abrade. The last thing we'll do is once over with the Dremel and some polish. For an 8,000. 2000. Okay, so that's our polishing process. We should have beautifully smooth frets here, apart from this one. Damn it, that still has a chip. That chip must have been really deep, and while it's high up, now where have my glasses gone? Okay, while it's high up in the fretboard, that is a horrible little gouge, and I can't see any real way of getting that out without running the risk of lowering that fret. So it was pretty damaged beforehand. The truth is, we will get a flat spot in that fret if we work it any harder. I'm going to try and do a little bit to it. Very difficult. That fret has got two quite nasty chunks taken out of it, courtesy of some injury that it's taken in the past, and it's the only fret that has those, actually. And really, realistically speaking, it's probably needs replacing if we wanted this to be perfect. But since we don't have any frets or tools to do that, I'm just going to do my best to clean that out. And we'll just quickly run through this process again. It's slightly annoying, given we've already just been through it all. But might just get away with it. This one that I've given extra attention to is now shinier than all of the others around it, not surprisingly. I think that's improved it. Get off. Yeah. Moths for you. Okay. Particularly, that's a very shiny fret by comparison to the others. Right. I'm going to go up from 4,000 again on these. I'm going to use my fingers on this. 3,600 upwards. Maybe better actually than using the foam block. Get some pressure on it. I think actually we can probably leave off the polishing on this. This is the equivalent of polishing. Hard to handle this stuff after a while. Right, dirty hands, shiny frets. It's looking good. Okay, so take this off. And makes quite a mess. Mucky stuff comes off this process, so you're going to need to clean off the neck and headstock with polish again once you've done all this. But off comes the masking tape. I've said a million times whilst doing these videos, at this stage don't ever be tempted to use a knife. If you use a fingernail only, if you need to dig this stuff off, because a knife will wreck your hard work, scratch your lacquer. Okay, kittens are still playing in here. It's up to you if in this stage, sometimes you can polish the frets with some polishing compound and a Dremel. I think they're shiny enough on this run as it is, just using that micro mesh paper. Pretty effective stuff. Just get all this paper off, give the whole surface a polish. We haven't yet given the fretboard a clean, but we'd probably be better off just using a cloth on that, not using any sandpaper at this point in time, because we've already polished the frets to high level, and if we put 1,000 grit sandpaper on, we're going backwards, because we'll undoubtedly scuff up the frets again. So if we were going to use it, we should have done that first, and that's okay. Now I've got bleed through here of the marker pen, and that's happened a couple of times now, which is a bit annoying, so I'm going to need to try and get that off. First of all, I'm just going to give this a toothbrush type of wash, and it's very quick, so it doesn't matter that it's got a little bit of detergent in it, but I'm just going to try and get off the majority of the dirt from alongside the frets, and I can quickly rub it off once I've done, so there's not a lot of standing water on there. This hopefully should get rid of some of any of the marker pen that we've bled through. something I've noticed happening a couple of times, so I'm going to have to think my way around that in the future. It's not too bad. It's a dark fingerboard anyway, so that doesn't stand out too much. But it's not ideal. Right, take that nut out for a minute because that's going to have to get glued in again. Come on, place that there. Right. While I'm at it, just to give that neck, back of the neck a once over where we've been working on it. Okay, so that's. There's a few bits of goo on there, so I'll just try a bit of Mr. Sheen. That's coming off nicely. Yeah, you always get marks from the masking tape as well, because it sort of traps the goo as you're working on it. It gets caught under the edges of the masking tape. Okay, so I'm ready now to a couple of steps now to get this bit finished for tonight, and then we'll stop. Next bit in the sequence, we're going to put the tuners on. We're going to glue in the nut back into place, and then we will be ready to put it on hold till next weekend. Okay, so make sure I get my nut the right way around before I glue it. I have some a little bit of super glue. I need a little tiny bit. Make sure I get my nut the right way. So fat end there. I'm going to put a tiny tack on here. Tiny tack on there. Just enough to hold it. We don't want to have it kind of totally gummed up forever. And push it in. Okay. That's fine, that's perfectly placed, and that will hold nicely. Okay, so now to the fun part. We are ready.